From the moment I stepped into Morrison's Italian Kitchen, my father's flagship restaurant, I felt it, a cold, heavy weight pressing on my chest. It was Lily's 10th birthday, a day that should have been pure joy. I'd only agreed to let him host because he'd insisted. Family should celebrate together. After years of distance, criticism, and silent resentment, I wanted to believe he meant it this time. Deep down, I already knew better. The private room looked perfect. Balloons, streamers, long tables gleaming under warm lights. Dad's new wife Denise stood front and center with her 2 kids, both Lily's age, dressed like they'd stepped out of a catalog. 20 relatives and friends filled the room with chatter and clinking glasses. The food, as always, was flawless. Morrison's had grown from one tiny place to 5 locations across 2 states, pulling in roughly $8 million a year. At least that's what everyone still believed. Gift time came after the cake. Denise's children went first. Her son ripped open the newest gaming console, $500+. Her daughter squealed over a designer handbag, $300+. They hugged Grandpa dramatically while cameras flashed and the room applauded. Then my father wheeled out a tall cart stacked with beautiful gold boxes tied with white satin ribbons. My granddaughter gets something very special this year, he announced, beaming. Lily's small hand found mine. She was nervous. She'd learned early how unpredictable Grandpa could be. But the boxes looked magical, and for one second her eyes lit up with real hope. She opened the first one carefully. Inside, an empty Morrison's pizza box. Clean. No crumbs. Nothing. She blinked. Is there something underneath? Keep going, Dad said, grin widening. There's more. Second box. Empty takeout pasta containers, spotless. Third box. Empty bread baskets and dried up sauce cups. The room started to chuckle, waiting for the punchline. Lily's face changed. That heartbreaking moment when a child realizes the joke is on them. My father raised his voice so everyone could hear. It's a joke, sweetheart. You need to practice being hungry. Poor kids stay hungry, right? Your mom can't afford to feed you properly on her little salary, so Grandpa's helping you get used to it. The room exploded with laughter. Lily looked up at me, eyes already shining with tears she was too proud to let fall. That was the exact moment something inside me snapped, and I stood up slowly, smiled at my daughter, and said loud enough for the whole room to hear, "Actually, Grandpa's the one who's about to go hungry." Then I pulled the thick envelope from my purse and slid it across the table toward him, because what nobody in that room knew yet, except me and the bank, was that Morrison's Italian Kitchen no longer belonged to my father. It belonged to me, and the foreclosure papers on all 5 locations were already filed. My father's brother nearly choked on his wine. A cousin slapped the table. Denise giggled behind her manicured hand. Lily's eyes filled with tears as she stared at the empty boxes while the adults laughed around her. I don't understand," she whispered. "Your mom made bad choices," my father announced, basking in the attention. "She walked away from family, thought she could do it alone. Proud and foolish. And now look. Struggling, barely feeding her kid. Living in that shoebox apartment. When you come from nothing, you stay nothing." More laughter. Someone joked about food stamps. Another mimicked holding an empty plate, and I stayed perfectly still, watching it all play out exactly as I knew it would. My father had humiliated me in public my entire life. Tonight he'd finally crossed the one line that could never be uncrossed, so I reached into my bag, pulled out a thick manila folder and smiled. "Actually, Dad," I said, calm and clear, "I'm glad you brought up finances and who's struggling. I've been meaning to talk to you about that." He scoffed. "What, you need money? I'm not a charity, Catherine." "No," I said softly. "You're not a charity. You're an employee. My employee." The laughter died like someone flipped a switch. Every head snapped toward us. "What the hell are you talking about?" he barked. I opened the folder and spread the documents across the table like playing cards. Morrison's Italian Kitchen. 5 locations. $8 million in reported revenue. And $600,000 in hidden debt. 15% customer drop year over year. Vendor contracts bleeding cash. His face went crimson. "That's private. It's my business information," I cut in. "Because 8 months ago you sold 65% of Morrison's Italian Kitchen to an investment firm called Cascade Holdings LLC. Remember signing the papers? The banker? The wire transfer for $3.2 million. I took on investors, he snarled. Partners. I'm still in charge. You're the general manager, I corrected. I'm the majority owner. I slid the key pages toward him. Cascade Holdings LLC, 100% owned by Catherine Morrison. Signed by David Morrison. Countersigned by your own attorney. You just never asked who was on the other side of the deal. Denise snatched the papers, eyes wide. David, you sold the restaurants? You told me you still owned everything. I own 35%, he shouted. Exactly, I said. You work for me. Here's your employment contract. $180,000 a year, standard benefits, at-will employment. The room was dead silent. My uncle finally whispered, Holy hell, David, your daughter owns your restaurants. I turned a failing chain around, I continued. The trademark, the name on the door, the recipes. Everything belongs to Cascade Holdings now. Which means it belongs to me. I looked straight at my father. And starting Monday, your salary is being reduced to reflect actual performance. The private dining room bookings for your personal events? Cancelled. The company car? Returned. And the family discount everyone in this room has been enjoying for years? Gone. Then I turned to Lily, took her hand and smiled. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go get you real cake and real presents. Grandpa's restaurant can keep the empty boxes. They suit him. I walked out with my daughter while the man whose name was still on the sign stood speechless, finally tasting what it feels like to have nothing inside MY Company. The recipes, the branding, the locations, every brick and bottle of olive oil. I turned to Lily, whose eyes were wide but no longer wet. Sweetie, go with Aunt Mary and order anything you want. Real dessert, the kind that actually has food in it. My sister-in-law gave me a quick nod and whisked Lily away. Once the door closed behind them, I faced the room again. 8 months ago, I continued, voice perfectly level, I planned to stay quiet. Fix the hemorrhaging finances behind the scenes and let Dad keep the spotlight. But tonight you handed my 10-year-old daughter empty food boxes and told her to practice being hungry. You mocked a child to feel big. That made it personal. Dad muttered. It was just a joke. It was cruel. I cut in. Exactly like you've always been. You told me I'd fail when I left at 18. Called my private equity career pointless. Never once asked what I actually do. Well, Dad, I manage a $200 million fund. And when your restaurants were drowning in $600,000 of debt, I was the one who bought 65% quietly through Cascade Holdings because it was a smart investment. Not for revenge. For business. He whispered. You should have told me. You should have cared enough to ask, I replied. Denise shot to her feet. David, we need to talk privately. Sit down, I said calmly. This is a business discussion now, and it affects everyone who's been bragging about Dad's empire. I opened the second folder. Performance Review, General Manager David Morrison. $200,000 annual losses from bloated overhead and terrible vendor deals. 15% drop in customer satisfaction over 3 years. 2 locations barely breaking even. You're a brilliant chef and a charming host, Dad. You're a terrible manager. My uncle tried. Catherine, he's still your father. You just watched him make my daughter cry with empty pizza boxes. I'm being professional. I could be a lot harsher. I closed the folder. Here's what happens next. Monday 9 a.m. my office. You, me and legal. 2 options on the table. 1. You stay as GM with reduced authority, reduced salary and heavy oversight. 2. You resign with a generous severance, keep your 35% stake as a silent partner, and walk away with dignity. You don't get a third option. This is no longer your restaurant. Your name is on the sign. My name is on the deed. I stood. Think about it. Meetings at 9. Don't be late. Employees don't get to be late to meetings with the owner. I walked out. In the main dining room, Lily was happily eating real chocolate cake. She looked up, chocolate on her chin. Can we go home, Mom? Yes, baby. And we won't be coming back here for family events anymore. In the car, she asked quietly, Did you really buy Grandpa's restaurants? I did. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because it was business, not personal until tonight. Tonight he made it personal. Are you going to fire him? I'm giving him choices. Whatever he picks is up to him. Monday's meeting was brutal, short and final. He chose option 2. He still gets quarterly dividends from his 35%. But the sign out front now reads Morrison's Italian Kitchen, a Cascade Holdings restaurant, and the man whose name is on the door clocks in like any other employee. Some lessons come served in empty boxes. Turns out all it takes is the right person holding the real ones. My father arrived Monday morning with Denise, chin high, certain I was bluffing that I wasn't. The outside HR director, someone he'd never met, laid out 2 years of performance data, cost analyses, competitor benchmarks. She finished with a single slide. Properly managed, these restaurants should be doing $10 million a year. Right now they're 25% below potential. Dad tried every excuse. The economy, rising food costs. Kids these days don't appreciate real Italian food. I let him finish. Then I repeated the 2 options. Pride won. He chose resignation, severance. $100,000 cash plus his 35% passive stake. No voting rights. No operational control. Just quarterly checks that I brought in a restaurant group veteran with 20 years at a national chain. Within 6 months, revenue up 30%, 2 dying locations turned profitable, customer scores at all-time highs. A 7th and 8th location opened. Dad's first dividend check as a silent partner. $180,000 for 6 months. More than he'd cleared running the places himself the entire previous year. He called. The restaurants look good, he said, voice small. The new menu is different. But good. A long pause. I was wrong. About the empty boxes. About a lot of things. Yes, I answered. You were. Can I apologize to Lily? You can write her a letter. If she wants to see you after that, it's her call. He wrote it. Lily, now almost 12, read it, folded it neatly and said, I don't want to see him, Mom. Not yet. Maybe never. 14 months later, Denise filed for divorce. Turns out she'd married the image of a successful restaurateur, not a retired chef living on dividend checks. Dad downsized to a modest condo. Comfortable but quiet. Meanwhile, Morrison's Italian Kitchen, now a Cascade Holdings brand, hit 8 locations across 3 states. 2 years after that awful birthday, Lily and I were eating at the newest location. At the next table, a father raised a glass to his daughter, voice cracking with pride. Lily watched them, then turned to me. Do you think Grandpa gets it now? Gets what? That the empty boxes weren't really about teaching me to be hungry. They were about him feeling small and needing someone smaller to step on. I smiled. When did you get so wise? You taught me, she said, shrugging. You showed me that when someone tries to make you feel tiny, sometimes the best answer is just to stand up and let them see how big you actually are. I still keep one of those empty pizza boxes on the shelf in my office, right between a photo of Lily and the framed Forbes 30 Under 30 article. Visitors always ask why an empty box sits in such a prominent spot, but I tell them it's a reminder. Empty gestures say everything about the person handing them out, and nothing about the person they're aimed at. Dad gave my daughter empty boxes and told her to practice being hungry. I gave him a mirror and a quiet place to practice humility. Only one of us meant it as a gift.